Claudius Caesar was known for his great feats, such as expanding the Roman Empire to Britain, the Middle East, and parts of Africa.
Caesar has come to the conclusion that the only way to save the Republic is to fundamentally destroy and rebuild it.
His love for people led him to enact laws that protected slaves and gave more rights to the citizens of Rome. However, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows for the fourth emperor of ancient Rome, as many of his peers and family members felt he was too weak to rule and an embarrassment to the empire. From suffering physical deformities to being the object of ridicule in his own family, Claudius Caesar wasn't cut for the pomp and pageantry of Roman royalty. However, like a diamond in the rough, nobody was prepared for the glitter that Claudius Caesar was about to unleash. You know, I'm sure many of you have felt this way about yourself in the past. It's hard to believe in yourself when no one else will. Even the toughest people sometimes tear up when people close to them mock and tear them down with their words. It's even worse when they have a physical defect through no fault of their own, yet family members and society won't let them hear the last of it. So was the fate of Claudius Caesar, who had no shot at becoming emperor. He was the black sheep of the family, the butt of all jokes. All his friends and colleagues mocked him endlessly for his disability, which many historians believe to be either cerebral palsy or Tourette's syndrome. His worst mocker was his own nephew and Roman ruler, Emperor Caligula. It is said that Caligula mocked and taunted him endlessly, trying several tricks he invented for the poor on the hapless Claudius Caesar. Even when Claudius dozed off during dinner, Caligula would try different gimmicks on him to amuse his guests. His favorite was putting his slippers in Claudius's open hands and throwing bits and pieces of food at him. Thus, when he jolted out of sleep, he would rub his eyes with the slippers, and the guests would burst into fits of hysterical laughter. His own sister was no different. She reportedly prayed that Rome would be spared the agony and shame of having Claudius sit on the throne. Even his mother, Antonia Minor, gave up on him when the young boy's disabilities became evident. And I thought a mother's love was unconditional and everlasting. Well, perhaps not for Antonia Minor. Tired of raising him and ashamed of being called his mother, Antonia shipped off Claudius to live with his grandmother, Livia. Though his grandmother was kinder, she grew weary of his deformities and, before long, handed him over to a donkey trainer of all people for training and discipline. Donkey trainers were tough disciplinarians, and they had to be because donkeys are probably the most stubborn of domesticated animals. Maybe she likened her grandson to a donkey and thought he would be better off with a donkey driver. Maybe she thought his disabilities were a result of laziness and thus needed a strong disciplinarian to guide him. Whatever the reason, Claudius ended up spending some years with a donkey trainer. As for his treatment at the trainers, well, I'll leave that to your imagination. However, one thing I can't leave to your imagination is to like and subscribe to our channel. All of us here get so giddy when we see your thumbs up, so be sure to hit that notifications bell and turn on all notifications to get informed whenever we upload a new video. You will be most certainly making our day. Thanks ever so much. Now, back to our friend Claudius. Despite all his challenges, the young Claudius Caesar never gave up on himself and kept improving. By the time he had hit his teenage years, his disabilities had waned, and his family was now prepared to take him back into their fold. On his return, his family discovered he loved learning, so they employed Titus Livius, a well-known Roman historian, to teach him history. The teenage Claudius Caesar also studied philosophy under the Stoic philosopher Athenodorus and excelled brilliantly. However, his favorite subject was history, which eventually became his undoing. You see, the history of Roman emperors was sometimes embellished to make them look good in the eyes of the public, much like state-sponsored or state-owned media houses today that deal in the secret business of propaganda. Like them, their facts were tweaked, and entire narratives were tuned to favor the emperor. However, Claudius Caesar was different. He refused to toe the line and wrote down the history of Emperor Octavian as he saw it without mincing words or twisting facts. His style of penning history was deemed too truthful or critical of the emperor. So he was stripped of his position as a historian, and many of his works were censored. Sound familiar? Once again, Claudius Caesar was relegated to the background. Just when he thought he was getting recognition, fate dealt him a hard blow, and destiny relegated him to obscurity. However, men like Claudius Caesar couldn't be held down for long. Like a wooden cork, they always rose to the surface. Ironically, it wasn't his abilities that saved him. It was his disabilities. Many of the noblemen were not happy with Emperor Caligula's rule, and thus decided to assassinate him so they could take control of the empire. They instigated the Praetorian Guards, an elite unit that protected the royal family, to carry out their deadly mission, and they succeeded. However, when they came up on Claudius Caesar shivering behind a curtain, they crowned him king. Not because they were impressed with his improvements, but because they saw him as someone fit for purpose. You see, the Constitution only allowed members of the royal family to rule. So, to make their dreams of ruling the empire come true, the conspirators and the Praetorian Guards needed a stooge, or puppet, a royal blood they could easily manipulate. Therefore, when they found Claudius hiding behind a curtain, of all places, they smiled and nodded at each other. Their plan was afoot. However, nothing prepared them for what would happen next. Once Claudius Caesar was crowned king, he set out on his own agenda to consolidate and solidify his reign by cleverly outwitting the conspirators. First, he bought the loyalty of the Praetorian Guards by offering each guard a substantial amount of money.
1,500,000 dinars.
Now, nobody could get the guards to do their bidding except him. However, the senators were still not on his side because they felt he was an illegitimate heir to the throne. They wrote several notices and tried to whip up public sentiments against him. Therefore, to win the goodwill of the senators, Claudius embarked on the most audacious military campaign no one had ever dared: to conquer Britain. He sent 40,000 troops, including thousands of elephants, across the English Channel, conquering every army they encountered. Once he got the green light, Claudius visited his troops in Britain and spent a little over 2 weeks before returning to Rome. Upon his arrival in Rome, he was given a hero's welcome as every woman and child sang his praises at the top of their voices. Claudius finally bought the loyalty of the Senate and won the hearts of his citizens. His dream has been achieved. His power has been totally consolidated. However, he didn't rest on his laurels as many leaders often do at the zenith of their power. Claudius set out to work improving the judicial system and even offered to personally judge some of the cases brought before the courts. He also raised the age of the jurors to 21 years to ensure maturity and fairness in deciding the outcomes of cases. He conquered new territories and improved the livelihoods of the citizenry. However, if you're an ardent follower of this channel, you'll know stories like this don't end on a beautiful note. There's always a weird, dark twist somewhere, and Claudius Caesar is no exception. Our hero had some slightly bizarre habits that were head-scratching. According to some historical accounts, a killer whale got trapped in the seaport at Ostia, and Claudius found the weirdest way of taking the big fish out of its misery. He raced to the scene with his elite bodyguards, and they put on a show for the audience gathered to watch the spectacle. He ordered his soldiers to board the warships and throw spears at the big fish, with the crowd cheering excitedly each time a spear landed on the whale. Sadly, one spear went through the animal's blowhole and sank it to the bottom of the ocean, never to rise again. Sad, but this was the least of Claudius's problems. His major issue? He was unlucky when it came to women. His first wife, Plautia Ergonilla, was a chronic cheat, or so he thought. So he divorced her and married another, Aelia Patina. The couple gave birth to a daughter, Claudia Antonia, but that marriage too didn't last. The reasons for the divorce are unclear, but some commentators suggest Aelia took him through some form of mental torture. Nevertheless, he married a third wife, Valeria Messalina, who was worse than the previous two. Aside from her promiscuous ways, Valeria teamed up with her lover, Gaius Silius, in an attempt to oust Claudius from the throne. When he discovered their devilish plot, Claudius executed his wife and took on the fourth, Agrippina the Younger. Just when he thought he hit gold, Agrippina proved that not all that glittered was gold. First, she tricked Claudius into naming her son Nero. whom she had with another man, as successor to the throne. But she didn't stop there. She assassinated Claudius by serving him with poison, allowing her son Nero to ascend the throne, a sad end to one of Rome's greatest emperors. Meanwhile, feel free to recommend historical figures you'd like me to cover on this channel. I'd love to hear your suggestions. If you found Claudius' story to be intriguing, then you'll love the story of Julius Caesar. Click on this video to enjoy it, and I'll see you there. Until next time, thanks ever so much for watching.